So this meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded, and in fact are being recorded, by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. So is anybody recording other than the town? Great. Okay. So now we call to order. And if we could spend a minute of silence for Bill Harrington, who was on our committee for a number of years and was a good man, and maybe think about how lucky we are to be here tonight, and think about what a nice first day of fall it was, and the pain his family is going through, or whatever else you care to think about to remember him. And then we'll resume. Thanks. Okay, thanks everybody. Does anybody have any announcements that didn't make it into the agenda that need to get said? Okay, great. And Kirsten, you're watching, right? For hands and all of that? Okay, great. So we need to vote on this year's CP chair and vice chair. Charlie and I are happy to do it again, but we don't have to be the ones who do it. And it's open to nominations. Then we'll take a vote.
Larry, this is Vicki. I have to say, I don't know that you're willing, but I'd like to nominate you as chair again. You've done an amazing job, and I know this hasn't been easy without some kind of administrator of some sort. So I'd like to nominate you as chair for the following year, the next year.
Thanks, Vicki. I accept that nomination. Any other nominations for chair? Okay, and for vice chair, I would entertain a motion to bring up a vice chair.
I'll nominate Charlie if Charlie is willing to accept that.
You have to unmute Charlie.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm willing to accept that.
Any other nominees for vice chair? Great. So if we could take a vote on the chair, I'm just going to go across the screen in the order that I see your names. So this is for Larry for chair. So Megan?
Sure.
Vicki?
Aye.
Kirsten?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
Is there anybody on the committee who's here that I'm not? Oh, Bob.
Aye.
Great. Okay.
Both.
Okay, well, wait, we have to do the vice chair after. Okay, so it's unanimous for chair, although I think Kevin is not here, if I'm correct. And I'm not, I guess it's just Kevin at this point. Okay, so now on vice chair, Megan for Charlie.
Sure.
Okay, Vicki,
Aye.
Kirsten,
Aye.
Judy,
Aye.
and Bob.
Aye.
And I, Larry, will say aye too. So that's unanimous for Charlie. So thanks both folks for your confidence in us and your faith in us. Okay, so now we're ready to get on to the meat of tonight, which is looking at the preliminary applications for 20 different projects that have come before us. One thing I want to add is we are going to want to set aside and vote for ourselves in January $20,000 this year for CPC administration. We voted 10 last year, and I think we may have been cutting ourselves short because I forgot the fact that we pay the community Preservation Coalition about $4,000 a year in fees. The town is also assigning us a new minutes taker, and she's not on tonight. She's going to listen to this recording and do the minutes from that, but she'll be on for the rest of the season, and I have no idea how much she earns an hour or how quickly she's going to get up to speed. So I don't know how many hours it's going to take. And once in a blue moon, we have legal fees, although it's very rare. And I think 20 will keep us safe. So just keep that in your head, that 20,000 of what we have to recommend, we need to recommend for our own administration. Okay, I'm going to go one by one through the applications. They are, I promise you, not in any particular order. They're just the order that I plucked them off the CPC email. They're not even the order in which they came in. So don't read anything into which comes first and which comes last. It's just literally what got printed out one at a time. So one thing I have found out since we last met is technically I'm in charge of figuring out whether an application is eligible to go forward on my own. The Hingham Procedure Manual says the chair decides this. I changed it last year or two, I think it was last year, because I thought, gee, that doesn't seem right. We should have a consensus. But I was told this summer by 2 different people that I'm not allowed to on my own change the procedures manual, that any changes in the procedures manual have to be done by vote. So with that in mind, this is what I'm thinking. And also given advice by somebody who's schooled in CPC matters. I'm going to say each application and what my ruling is, and I'm putting ruling in quotes. And if there's no disagreement, we'll move on. But if we have a plurality of people who feel, no, wait a minute, I don't think you're thinking this right. And by a plurality, I mean 4 of you, so at least half the current committee. We're waiting to seat a 9th person, and that's happening, but it hasn't happened yet. But I think if at least 4 people say, no, I don't disagree, I don't agree with that, or I think we need to discuss it more, we will discuss it more. So I am trying to follow our own rules, but also trying to make it a consensus rather than a unilateral decision. So with that in mind, I'm just going to start with the first one in front of me, and I'm going to assign liaisons as we go through. So the first one is the Sons of Italy Lodge. And Judy, if you don't mind, I'm going to assign you to that one. And my thinking is that this can go forward to the final application, although there are lots and lots of, not lots and lots, there are questions. For one thing, they checked off that it's open space, recreation, and historic. And it's definitely not open space. And I'm not sure if it's recreation. I don't know what kind of events they put on there. And if it was built in 1850, which it seems like that's what they're saying up at applicant, then it could be potentially eligible for historic funds for preservation. But they're not in this preliminary, which is okay. They're not saying what they want to preserve or what they want to restore. Then I don't really know anything about the building. I passed it a lot. I didn't realize it was an old building. So Judy, I think it would be good to reach out to Kevin McNally and find out what do they have in mind. And, it can't be open space, and maybe do some digging about whether it can. I think my guess is they have the biggest bang for their buck with historic, but what does that mean, and what do they want to do? And you can advise them, and you can come back to me and talk to me. And if I don't know the answer, I'll go to the Community Preservation Coalition and say, how do we make heads or tails of this? But I don't see any reason why this couldn't go to the final application. The other thing, Judy, you might want to tell them is, for a private entity, it's always a stronger application if they are raising some of the funds some other way as well, and not coming to CPC for all the funds. But that doesn't disqualify them. It would just make it a stronger application. So Bob has a question, but before Bob talks, Judy, did you have any questions or comments?
I'm just a little, I'm happy to do this, but I thought we all kind of volunteered the last 2 years. I'm just wondering how you chose me for this one when there's 20 applications.
It was a little bit just kind of pick and choose. it's out of your wheelhouse, so I thought that would make a good fit in its own way. It's not planning, and I think so. You're going to go into it not leaning one way or another. And by the way, I should say to all of you that liaisons are not project proponents or project advocates. They are liaisons. They talk to the applicants about where the holes are there in their application and how to potentially make it stronger. So I think, I mean, if I were going into my subconscious, I would say I probably chose you because this isn't something you'd have a passion about one way or another. And I think that makes a good liaison.
I've never been asked. I've only just been assigned to projects before.
Well, you're going to be assigned again. Okay. Are you okay with this one, Judy?
It's fine. It's just
Okay.
not the way we did it in the last 2 years.
Great. The problem is if we do that, projects are going to be left by the boards and I'm going to have to end up assigning anyway, because there are just going to be certain projects that people don't want. Bob, what was your question?
Well, since this is a learning curve for me, when you qualify a project to go forward, does it only relate to the category in which it falls, and there's no implication as to the requested amount?
I don't understand the question.
All right, if we approve this to go forward and there's X number of dollars requested for any project, doesn't have to be this one, the approval to go forward, does that also imply that whatever the funds asked for are moving forward with it? Or is it just the category of the project qualifies it?
That's a good question. So the answer is CPC allows numbers to change up until we vote in mid-January. So this is their thinking. This toe hole just says, this is what we think we need. Between now and October 12th, when the final application is due, they are expected to go into the weeds and try to get some cost estimates. And we need to understand, well, what do you want to do? Not the place is a mess and we want to fix it, but you know, the floors are rotted over here and the wainscoting is a problem here. And we spoke to these two contractors and they both come in at around X thousand and we're revising our ask. They can be 200,000 all the way through. They can even go above it.
So it's the category that we're approving. In other words, what they're proposing to do falls in the appropriate silo.
My read on this, and I think we're going to find this out from Judy, is that it's potentially appropriate for historic. Maybe it's even potentially appropriate for recreation. I don't know, but I think they have a better chance for historic. And if it is, yeah, it will go into that category. Just so you know, Bob, none of the categories are in danger of not getting their 10% this year because we owe a ton of money on the Laner land, which is open space recreation. We owe significant money on the Benjamin Lincoln House, which is historic preservation. And we are required by law to put 10% toward affordable housing. So no category will go underfunded in any legal sense. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next. Okay, so the next one I have are the 10 from the Hingham Housing Authority. And I'll get to the ending and then go back through them. In my estimation, 7 of these are not eligible for CPC funding, and I will explain why. So maintenance is not allowed in affordable housing, and certainly not if it is not CPC housing. However, preservation is allowed. So that's one thing. But and I have a letter explaining what is thought to be preservation by the Department of Housing and Community Development. So, and they say in their letter, please note that this guidance is advisory in nature and is not binding on your community. But so we don't even have to go by this. But let's go by this for starters. The first line in this notice, and I think I forwarded to you all, is utilization of CPA funds for preservation of existing public housing units. So what they mean is they're talking about the spaces that people live in. They're not talking about common spaces or garages or dumpsters or anything of the sort. And in fact, later today, and I'm not sure I sent it to you because I've received so many communications, I even have a letter from and I'm happy to forward it to people, from the chief of the Bureau of Municipal Finance Law from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, specifically saying that a creation of parking is not allowed, and that updating or fixing up of public spaces is not allowed because it's not the creation or acquisition of housing. So that would knock out the garage. It would knock out the fire door hold open system, which also gets knocked out because that protects tenants, and CPC, as unfortunate as it might be, is not allowed to protect tenants. We're only allowed to protect property. And in fact, a door hold open system, you could argue, hurts property in a fire. The replacing the deteriorated flooring in common areas is not inside a housing unit. The painting the walls in common areas is not inside a housing unit. And in fact, painting walls is not allowed, and I'll get to that a little later. The dumpsters and enclosures is not a housing unit. The sign replacement is not a housing unit. I've talked to you about the parking spaces expansion. So to my mind, those 7 don't qualify, and they should be passed on.
Okay, sorry, can you just run through the
Those
7
7?
that you don't, I'm sorry, can
Yes.
you just run
And
through?
by the
them?
way, is Jim here tonight by any chance? The guy who did the applications, Megan, is he here?
Oh, no, I don't think he could come tonight.
Okay, I will
I
call
think he
him.
was gonna try to, but
Okay. I assigned myself as liaison to all 10 of these, so I'll reach him, but let me give you these 7 again.
okay.
So it's the Scotland Street garage, the fire door hold open system.
I think
Can you
that
do it by
absolutely,
amounts?
the fire doors are in the notice, things for fire systems.
No, not that. The notice is very specific. It says installation of hardwired smoke alarms, sprinklers, and other building fire suppression systems.
Yes, this is a fire suppression system. It's fire doors. They're designed to suppress fire.
Right, but there
No.
are fire doors there, correct?
Yes,
Excuse me, who is speaking other than Megan?
Me.
Me,
Kirsten.
who? Oh, Kirsten, let Megan finish. Just hold on.
okay, so there are fire doors. The problem is that they don't automatically open and close. So residents, they're very heavy. So they're supposed to stay closed all the time. And they're very heavy and residents have trouble opening and closing them. So they prop them open, which does not work in a fire. So this would be a system which is basically standard in any building nowadays, where they're on sort of a magnet where they stay open, and then as soon as the fire alarms go off, the magnetic holds release and the doors close automatically. And this way the doors can be opened when the fire alarms are not going off, so that residents can freely go through the halls without having to open and close these very heavy doors, or without propping the doors open in an unsafe manner. But fire doors are definitely a fire suppression system.
Mr. Linder, if I may speak.
Well, actually, my committee's going to speak first, and then I'm going to open it out. So just hold your thought, Rick. Kirsten? You have to unmute.
I'm good.
Okay, you're good. Anybody else on my committee? So Megan, did you want to say more about that?
No, I mean, I just think it's a pretty clear cut fire suppression system. That's what fire doors are.
Does
So
anybody?
Larry, Vicky, sorry, I don't know how to put my hand up, but what I'm hearing is that if there are fire doors there, this is clearly a repair, not and from what you're saying is that the CPC policy is something about units. I mean, this is clearly fire suppression doors. I'm not suggesting they're not important, but this is a repair situation. If the fire doors are there, and they're not working properly, this is a repair. So
No, it's a whole new system of the magnetic things that hold the doors open and close. That requires a whole new system. There's no system in place.
The thing, and Rick, just stay right there. The thing I'm concerned about, Megan, is I don't think something that makes it easier for tenants to get through the doorway when there's not a fire, which is really what this is about, is CPC eligible.
But I think but the issue is that they're propping the doors open regardless because they can't open and close the doors. So
That's not the primary purpose. It's
Wait,
not the
Rick,
primary
Rick,
purpose.
Rick, you don't have the floor. Please stop. Megan, go on.
Honestly, I feel like this is the most important one. I mean, this like fire safety is not something to play with. Can you imagine if there was a fire and we turn down this application? Like, I mean, fire safety systems seem like one of the most important things in any congregate building units. And to say that this fire suppression system doesn't count because there's already fire doors, but there's no system in place to keep them open or closed, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I hear you. I don't think we're eligible to make it easier for the tenants to get in and out. Before I open it to Rick, does anybody else on the committee want to say anything about this? Because, Judy, you need to unmute.
I know that. I would like to say that in the case, I understand where the guide says that you can decide unilaterally, but I think in the case where there are kind of substantive concerns about your determination, that we should set that item aside, do some more research, and and whoever wants to do the research can do it, and we can all decide together at the next meeting, because I'm very uncomfortable with, I haven't done any research on fire suppression systems and kind of the applicability, but I wouldn't be ready to say yes or no at this meeting about and I know it's not my place. I know that you get to do it, but I would encourage us to have consensus before we move forward on things.
Bob?
I think there is one thing you need to consider when you look at this. And by the way, we own an architectural firm, so I'm very aware of life safety code issues. When you have housing for the elderly, and particularly if they're my age, they might not be able to push those doors open because they're so heavy, and therefore they become trapped. And that's another conceptual framework in which to consider whether it's a repair or whether it's improving public safety. And then I go back to what Judy just said, because if we create an environment with our funds that perhaps puts certain populations at risk, we have to be aware of the nature of that decision. So I'm not making a recommendation. I'm just saying that's something we have to take into consideration.
Actually, I hate to say this, we are not allowed to take that into consideration. That's the whole problem. We are not allowed to consider the safety of people. We are only allowed to consider the safety of the building. That's a fact. It just is. It's not my decision. Kirsten?
The question, I think I agree with Judy, it requires more research, is because if you look under preservation activities, there is a category for replacement of dangerous building systems, which threaten the housing units. And the question I think that's at hand is whether or not there are fire doors, that's the other issue, does this system, because it is improperly being used currently, can we replace it, which would be safer and reduce the threat of fire in the building? So I would think that this would need more research in order to determine whether that is an applicable use of that under preservation.
Yeah, although what I'm hearing is it reduces the threat of harm to the residents. The fire doors are already there and closed. But hold on, Bob, you wanted to say something?
Oh, no, I thought I had taken my hand down.
Okay.
Lower.
So,
Okay.
So Vicky and Charlie, I think it's important for you to weigh in so I know which way to go.
Well,
Yeah, I think,
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, Judy.
No, I just wanted to say, no, I'm not familiar enough with the fire doors. I misunderstood. I mean, what I was saying is if there was a system and we're repairing it, that's, I'm using the word repair. We can't do repairs. So, but I may be wrong. I'm not familiar with the doors. I'm certainly not suggesting we keep an unsafe thing. My point is CPC can't repair doors, but if there are no, I'm not understanding. So perhaps it is worth a further look into it so that we understand, because I clearly don't understand what it is. Repair, CPC can't pay for repair. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and Charlie, what were you going to say?
I think it probably is worthy of further investigation too, because while it's we can't pay for repairs, perhaps the doors, obviously they aid into safety, not only of those within the building, but there's an argument made that it aids in the safety of the overall building. So I think there's more work to be done here.
Okay, so what we have to do is we have to allow HHA to continue to the final application, because we can't tell them not to continue to the final application if we haven't made a decision. So I'll tell that to Jim. But before I let Rick speak, does anybody from advisory committee want to make a comment? Okay, Rick?
Thank you. Well, let me first start by saying that the purpose of this project was not to allow the tenants or create ease for the tenants. That has nothing to do with it whatsoever. So let's dispel that. Number two, it falls under the category of smoke alarms because it is tied into the fire alarm command panel. And it is not maintenance whatsoever. It is not upkeep. It is not maintenance. It is not an existing system that we are maintaining. It is a brand new aspect of the system. It is any fire department in the country would support it. It is, again, it's tied into the smoke alarms. It's tied into the fire alarm command panel. And what it is what the problem is the tenants are propping the fire doors open. Now, you probably all do know that fire doors are meant for a purpose, and that purpose is to keep the fire from spreading. Where there's oxygen, there's going to be fire. So when these doors are propped open, if there's a fire, then we're not going to preserve anything. But if these hold opens are in place, that solves two problems. The tenants, the door is held open, as long as there's not a fire and as long as that fire alarm command panel is not tripped by any smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors, then those doors will stay open and the tenants will not jam wedges in them and keep them open, because if the fire alarm goes off, those doors aren't going to be closed and the fire's just going to spread from one corridor to the next, right down. It'll just go swoosh. Now, if those hold opens are in place, then what the fire alarm system does is it releases the magnetic contact of that hold open and the door closes. And now your fire doesn't spread.
Okay, so this is what I think. I'm the liaison. I'm going to do more research. You guys, and I guess Jim is the one who's going to be completing the final application, and he should be informed as to what to say to make it to make the case that it's a fire suppression system.
It's not suppression, by the way. It's actually part of the fire detection system, which is also tied into the fire suppression system. So it's engineering.
Okay, let's not snatch victory from or defeat.
Thank you. Okay, so the next one is the heating system replacement. The HHA, and this is for Scotland Street, has come to CPC in the past to replace this, and the request was denied. And I think this was about 7 years ago. I wasn't on the committee at the time. I watched the proceedings because I was applying for CPC funds myself. So I don't remember their reasoning, but
Can
our institutional memory was Vicky. So I actually think if you can, Vicky, remember why, and you'd have to unmute, the heating system replacement was nixed, that would be useful.
Well, I mean, I can only remember that again, this was a repair, this was repair and not preservation. And that's the only thing I can remember regarding the heating system, which, right, it was about 7 years ago, I think. So I'd have to go into detailed notes, which I have done on other projects here, but not this particular one.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, I'm gonna speak a minute, Megan. Don't worry, everybody will get to say what they need to say. That note from the Department of Housing and Community Development goes into what's allowed for preservation, because we can't do maintenance, and there is nothing about heating systems. It's just not in there at all. Boilers and heaters need to be replaced sometimes. It's part of the maintenance of a building. Megan?
Okay, I just need some clarification because my understanding was that the rules were much stricter about pre-existing units, but that units that were purchased with CPC funds could keep returning to CPC for even including for maintenance and repairs of the units that were purchased with the CPC funds, which Scotland Street was.
Has Scotland Street, has a deed been registered with the town that Scotland Street is affordable housing in perpetuity? Because HHA has come to CPC in the past to do things with that argument, and a deed was never recorded. And we actually cannot touch that. If, in other words, if it's not recorded with the town that purchase with CPC funds or not, if it's not a recorded, if there's not a registered deed saying this is an affordable property in perpetuity, we legally aren't allowed to touch that. And I think that's a question you guys need to get answered. It was not so in 4 years ago.
I don't know about that. I don't know if Rick or Laura knows anything about that.
The reason that's so important is otherwise the state can sell that house back to the open market whenever it wants. And our tax money, yours, mine, everybody in the room, has paid to fix something that then doesn't go to somebody who needs affordable housing. So I think that's I could talk to Jim about that, but it would absolutely, positively, on a legal basis, not be eligible without that deed recorded. Does anyone else want to comment? Okay, I will talk.
This is Laura Taylor.
Laura, are you on the HHA?
Yes.
Hi.
Yes. Hi. So we can look into that, but Rick, that's a 705. Do you know? Rick Brulard?
Oh, hold on, I have to unmute him.
Okay, great.
It's not happening.
But
There you go.
I've got it. Do you like Mr. Linder or Larry?
Larry.
Larry. Okay, thank you, Larry. Actually, Laura, I think it is a 705. I can look it up quick. But I do have I did look at all the deed information on the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, and 132 Scotland Street, there is book number 33990, page 346. And I think it goes into 347 as well. And so I believe it's recorded there. Now, as in terms of the language about perpetuity, I'm not sure, Larry.
It wouldn't be recorded in Plymouth. This is not, that thing, the Registry of Deeds in Plymouth just means who owns the house. This would be recorded with the town of Hingham, that it is recorded, it's deeded as affordable housing, and that couldn't change over. So it's something that has to be done with the town. And we've had this before with CPC, where it had nothing to do with housing. It actually was about conservation land. And when conservation land is made, a deed has to be recorded with Hingham that it will remain conservation land, because again, we can't be giving our own taxpayer money to buy land for the town that the town then is not required to keep as conservation land forever and ever. So it's that concept. So that's something to find out. You guys should check it on your end, and I will talk to Jim. But
So
if
Larry, this is Vicky. So I just found my note. I just want to be clear for those who are here in response to Hingham. So in 2015, 2016, Scotland Street came forward to replace a 20-plus-year-old furnace for $10,000. And they were at that time said they were going to apply for grants and incentives for other places. So we're now, that's what, 6 years ago. So what happened? If it was the heating unit, that's 6 years ago. So I guess I'm trying to understand when they were before CPC in 2015.
that's a good point, Vicky, but that's more about how we deliver. This is more about eligibility.
Right. No, I'm just asking if the heating unit was 20 years old, then it's now, did they go for grants and incentives? I mean, that was 7 years ago, and that's what they told our committee. I have the notes right here. I'm just
Yeah,
sharing.
we have a whole new committee now and a whole new executive director. What was done before is not, I don't know. And there isn't really any institutional knowledge, and they were not necessarily doing their due diligence.
Okay. Let's start with, is there a deed recorded with the town of Hingham to keep this as affordable housing? And I'll talk to Jim, and you guys work your end, and we'll see what we come up with.
Okay.
Okay. Then the preservation use of 4 family units. To me, it didn't seem like preservation, it seemed like maintenance. I ran it by Stuart Saganor. He's not a decider. He's a knowledgeable weigher-inner.
Mhm.
He agreed with me, especially because of the notice from the Department of Housing and Community Development specifically says that kitchen cabinets, replacement of those are not allowed. And they do talk about things that are allowed with preservation, but changing out bathroom vanities and upgrading kitchens, that's not under preservation. That's something that has to be done every so often. And people are living there, and people are going to move out of there, and new people are going to move in. So the 4 units are not going offline. So that's why I think it's a problem.
Okay. I will
There is
say,
also a bathroom.
Rick, I'm just going to let our CPC member talk
Okay.
first.
Oh,
I
of
do-
course.
sorry, I do want to say that an issue with the housing authority right now is that there was so much deferred maintenance. There's exactly 0 wiggle room in the budget for the next 2 years for any of these projects. So right now, CPC is actually the only way to get money for any of these things, which is, I think, why some of these things are, I will admit, a little bit borderline. But I do think that the need for all of them is very, very real. And in the slideshow presentations we've seen, like, the damage is unreal, just how much work is needed on some of these. And there is no money for literally years to do this from any other source.
So first of all, I should have said this up front. I hear you, and nobody here doesn't want to make life easier for people who need affordable housing. And all of you that I can see, Megan and Rick and Laura, and I see Irma's here. I'm not sure if who else is with HHA. You do terrific stuff. You're in a terrible, terrible position because you are by law afforded a seat on CPC, and by law essentially closed out of most eligibility for CPC funding. It's a really weird, arcane system that doesn't add up, but it's the law, and we have to abide by it. And the reason we have to abide by it is not because we're, perfect little people. It's because we always run that risk of losing our state match if we step outside, and we're watched. CPC has done things wrong before, and we're on the radar of the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. And since our state match this year is supposed to be something like 35%, and it's only going up every year, it's a lot of money. So I am so sorry that the system makes it nearly impossible for you guys to get money for worthy, valuable, necessary projects. We're not a good piggy bank for you because of the way the rules are set out. Anyway, so back to, I think it's maintenance, and I think we're too likely to get our hands slapped with those 4 family units. But I would love to hear from other CPC members.
Who would slap your hand, Larry?
The Department of Revenue, they would say, we're taking your match away because you stepped over the line.
Really?
Megan's calling it on the borderline, but the state may not.
Interesting.
Okay, so I mean, I'm a no, and I unless I get others other than Megan to say we need to keep researching this, we have to keep that one as no. I do have one more after this that I forgot.
I would like to say some words as well.
Wait, you're not up. It's up to the it's CPC wants to respond.
Of course.
Okay, we're at a no, Rick, but do your Hail Mary pass.
I heard one no from you.
You heard, I asked anybody if they disagreed with me, and nobody did, except, and even
Okay.
Megan didn't quite disagree. She said she understands it's borderline.
Well, I'll say
I do
this.
think
and-
this one is more safety than some of the other borderline
Can
ones.
you let Rick just talk?
Thank you. I do want to step back for a minute and say, when you're referencing the public housing notice 2013-14, you were right. It says work on existing public housing units. But when DHCD references public housing units, they're talking about the complete development. If you go to the second page under the
Wait,
title,
you're off
preservation
topic.
activities.
Rick, I'm happy to return to that.
Can
But
I
right now-
finish, Larry, please? Can I?
No,
mean,
actually not.
all right.
I'm gonna stop you because right now we're talking about 4 units.
No, I'm going to get right there, right now.
Okay.
But I just wanted to say that it's not just talking about the units, because they go into talking about building envelope and such. So I just wanted to make that point clear. So now, when we're at this project about Baxter Park family housing unit preservation, it is clear in the DHCD letter about replacing the kitchen cabinets, okay? But in terms of, you saw the, well, no, actually, there weren't any photos attached to that because it was only preliminary application. But there are delaminated countertops. There's flooring in the units that's worn down. And there's also bathroom work that's critical too in those units. So, and this is not maintenance work. Believe me, we can read these guidelines, and we're clear that maintenance is just not, you don't put that in here. This is true preservation work because these units are not habitable by the state sanitary code. They're not safe, decent housing units. We've got community housing. It is community housing, and all we're attempting to do is preserve it. If we can't put the kitchen cabinets up, then we'll find somewhere to get that money or do the project in phases or something. But so that's what I have to say about that project. I disagree that it is maintenance. It's not whatsoever. I have a construction background, and this is complete renovation of that, of those units. Our family units take more of a beating than our elderly. I wish we had all elderly tenants because they take great care of their units. It's awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Does anybody on the committee want to say anything else? Okay, so
Can I just make one more little comment? It's really little.
sure. You're
wanna say,
very invested in this. You have every
I
right
know.
to speak up.
I really wish that we could show you pictures of some of these things because it's absolutely appalling. Like, honestly, I know that these sound like just repairing, renovating kitchens. And in Hingham, that means, like, oh, I need like the newest color, like the latest marble, whatever. But like the linoleum is worn through to the floor. And so water gets on the floor, it's soaking in through the plywood sublayer. I actually don't know much about the terminology. Like this is actually, severe damage that needs to be repaired. And there's no other money, and it is structural, and it's going to start to be more structural, and it is a real issue.
Thanks, Megan.
I'm sorry, last comment from Hingham Housing Authority. I echo what both Rick and Megan said. And again, this is to preserve not just, maintenance, but it's to preserve, and things like bathrooms and work that's not done in bathrooms lead to leaks, lead to structural damage, lead to the building not being preserved.
I understand. And you're in a catch-22 because you have to do the maintenance so those things don't happen. It is hard, Laura, and I understand. Does anybody else on my committee want to say anything? Okay, I have one more project I want to speak about on Hingham Housing, and then I want to go through to make sure we're all on the same page about what's going to happen next. I skipped the preserving the building envelope of the Scotland Street house. So there were a number of things in that particular one. Most are not eligible. However, there was window replacement. And if it can be demonstrated that that bay window is letting in water that is, it's hurting the structural integrity of the home, wearing away the wood or something, water infiltration into a home messes up a home. That's allowable. So I don't know the answer, and it's possible none of you know the answer.
I believe it is based on what I saw. I only saw pictures. I haven't seen any of these sites in real life.
So Megan, I'm going to go to Jim and ask him to come back with on that particular one. I'm going to recommend to him that he come back with a final application saying that that window needs to be replaced because of water damage that is hurting the structural integrity of the building, but he will then need to demonstrate it. There would be a site visit, but I'll talk to Jim about that.
Larry, this is Vicky.
Yeah.
So this one I have done some research on, and I want Hingham Housing Authority to know I am not against anything, but unfortunately I've been here for almost 8 years. And in 2014, 2015, Scotland Street was given $28,068 for the building envelope of Scotland Street. I have it right here in front of me. They had come forward with a request of about 58. They sharpened their pencils. And January 14th, we voted them $28,068. It went through town meeting, and that was the building envelope. Now, I don't know what they're asking today that's different than this, but I would ask whoever is on the committee that they need to get back and take a look. I mean, I can give you detailed information, and I don't know who Rick is, but if you want to see the estimate that CPC looked at in 2014 and what was voted on, I am happy to share it with you. I don't know what was done. I don't know that and what I don't understand with CPC is when money is awarded and we don't know that the money was used, and I'm not suggesting you didn't use it for what it was used for, but when the exact same request comes 7 years, or not 7, well, it is 7 years later, was it used for something else? Was it not used exactly? Were the quotes incorrect? I don't know. We don't know, but I just want to share with the committee, you were awarded this money in 2015. So,
so I'm going to respond to Vicky, and then I'll let Rick talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's a good point, Vicky. And I think it takes us into after a final application. In other words, how about we let them come forward if in fact there is water infiltration into the house with a final application to fix or replace that window unit so that doesn't happen. And then it's our time to discuss. Just because a final application is allowed doesn't mean we're going to vote to approve it in January. So why don't I talk to Jim, let him come forward, and then we can say, what did you do with the window money the last time? Or, you know what I mean?
That's fine. I just would not feel that I was doing my historic piece here without sharing. And again, I'm all for affordable housing every day of the week. I just don't want the same exact project. We just need to follow up and make sure that people, if there's something different that, a preliminary application wasn't but I have all the details of this, and I'm more than happy to share it with anybody from housing. Or I'm sure it's all part of the,
Thank you, Vicky.
It's all part of the information. You can get it on the town website somewhere.
Larry, when you refer to Jim, are you referring to James? Marathis, the
Oh,
executive
does he go by
director.
James? I apologize.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay. No, that's okay. I just wasn't, I wanted to just,
Yeah,
know.
I just knew somebody who I translated in my head as Jim is the applicant. So
okay.
he's the person I'm supposed to
Yep.
contact.
Yep.
So to my committee, oh, does anybody from advisory committee want to say anything? Because you're welcome to. Okay, they're steering clear of us, guys.
Larry,
So-
I just want to just thank Vicky. Thank you very much for that. I think I may have that information that you're referring to, but it may be
Okay,
a little
Rick,
bit in a little bit
Rick,
different format
Rick,
than you
what-
have. So if you could send it to me, that'd be great.
Okay.
We're gonna move
Thank you.
on.
Thank you.
So just so I understand, I want to make sure that our committee is in the same place before moving forward. These are the HHA applications that can move forward to, or that can move forward to final, and I, as the liaison, need to do digging as they move forward to final on October 12th. It's the window in 32 Saxter Street. It's the fire door hold open system, and it's the heating system on Scotland Street. Although if that doesn't have that deed that we talked about, that won't be allowed. So to me, those are the three that, for the moment,
I feel like there's one more that I feel, sorry, and I don't know if this one was covered. Can I just say?
yeah,
Sorry, the
you're on the committee. That it is
I
your
know,
role.
I don't want to speak out of order. I know
No,
that
no.
thing. Okay, replace deteriorated flooring that poses a health and safety risk to the tenants. Sorry, that's the goals. The name is the Baxter Part Elderly Housing, Common Area Preservation, Entryway and Stairway Flooring. I feel like that is a health and safety risk. For some reason, when they built it or when they repaired it at some point, like a million years ago, they put carpeting in without the appropriate whatever you do underneath carpeting. And like, this is New England, you can't have a carpeted entryway in winter. And so the carpet's just rotted through and the flooring underneath is rotting through. And I feel like that one is also a particular safety issue for and about like just a deteriorating building.
So Megan, unfortunately, you just explained why it's not eligible. We are not allowed by law to consider tenant safety. We're not allowed. It seems cruel, it seems unfair, it seems wrong, but it is the law. That's not even like this, the DOR offered its opinion and housing
Okay.
offered its opinion.
But it's also about like the building, because the flooring is rotting through because it just had this carpet instead of linoleum or something that was actually waterproof to protect the plywood underneath.
I mean, if you guys want to upgrade it for maintenance and to make it nicer, you should. I have a letter saying we can't do common areas. We can't.
The letter's from who, Larry?
The letter is from the Department of Revenue, from whoever, I read that at the beginning. But it's always the chief of the Bureau of Municipal Finance Law at the Department of Revenue. That person changes.
Could we get a copy of that?
Of course, Megan should have it. And if I didn't send that one. 'cause
I
at a
don't know
certain-
if I got it. Honestly, a lot of my email was going into junk for a while.
I will send it to Megan.
Okay.
Because she's our person. and
Okay,
then she can
thank you.
share with-
And can I ask two questions? This is Laura.
Yeah, I
The
see.
date of that letter from DOR?
Different letters. One was 2010.
Mhm.
One was
May 30th, 2013.
and I have a painting letter from 2015. That's better. I see in front of me 2010. The May 30th was that was more like what's allowed preservation versus maintenance. This is
And that was from DHCD, I'm sorry. I was asking about the DOR letter.
the DOR letter was from November 22nd, 2010.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And my other question was
Wait,
you
Laura,
said,
let me
Okay.
just respond to that. I also ran this by the Community Preservation Coalition, and they feel that it still stands. I'm sorry, ask me your other question.
the other question was you said only the window was allowed, not the building envelope?
Well, not the building envelope as described in the application. Because
And
the
why? I
Why?
just
Yeah.
didn't understand why.
The
Yeah,
application is replacement of all exterior building architectural trim, which has nothing to do with the livability of the building, and thorough pressure washing and exterior painting of siding. And I guarantee you, the painting is not allowed. And I don't know if I sent the letter to Megan and the rest of the committee or not. But the
Did-
only thing in here that's preservation is potentially the window, if the way the window is letting in water and that's destroying the building.
May I? Larry?
Architectural trim is not about livability.
May I?
Yeah.
I respectfully have to disagree. I agree with the pressure wash and paint. I agree with you there. But the trim, and again, we didn't, obviously the preliminary applications, you don't submit photos, but the trim is in a condition in which, again, it's going to let water in and it is going to affect the structure. And if it gets in the walls, it's going to create a mold condition, and that is going to affect the tenants.
You need to demonstrate that it has occurred.
Okay.
Not otherwise it's a maintenance issue. You need to demonstrate that it's starting to happen.
Okay, I think it should make it through though to the final application, and we will investigate, and if not, we will not submit it, you know?
But
Larry,
Larry,
I'm sorry, who wants it?
I'm sorry, it's Vicky. I just want to again say, the install window trim, rain table, corner board, I have it right here, $7,000 in 2015, January 14th, 2015. This was approved. I mean, I don't know what
Right.
happened to the
Can
money.
I ask one question about this? Sorry, Vicky. Was this the money that the previous executive director returned? Because I know there was some project related to Scotland Street that she applied for the money, she got it, and then returned it to see.
Why? Well, that's up for your group. I don't know why it would be returned. It was approved.
Yeah.
And you got it. So, and there were grant agreements. So I don't know. That was Sharon Napier. I do know that. So that's, I
Well, I'm
can't,
just saying that would explain why it wasn't done, because
no.
I
But
know
that's
there was
not for this
project.
committee to decide.
Let me wrap up this part of the discussion because I think it's time. I think we can move on without having left stones unturned. I want to know if my committee, if I have this right. We are going to allow, of the 10 applications, the ones that can now go forward. And by the way, if there's not that deed registered at the town about affordable housing in perpetuity, none of these can go forward after October 12th. But for now, the ones that can go forward are the Scotland Street house. We'll put in the window and I'll talk to James about the trim. The fire door hold open system. Actually, those are the ones. Oh, yeah, those two. And the heating system, excuse me. We're going to ask about, so those three, to my mind, are the ones that my committee has agreed that can keep going. Does anybody feel I have that wrong? Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you all. And again,
Did you say
thank you.
unit preservation?
Excuse me?
I didn't hear you say the unit preservation.
Because we decided against it. We agreed as a group that that's not eligible. So we're going to move on now to other projects. Thank you. And thank you to AHHA. I know how disappointing and frustrating it is. We all do. It is literally the law of the land. Okay, so the next one on my list is the Hingham Sports Partnership, is the Hingham High School Health and Wellness Center put forth by the Hingham Sports Partnership. Is anybody here from the Hingham Sports Partnership? Kirsten, do you see anybody?
No, but I know the person who submitted it.
Okay, it can't go forward. And the reason it can't go forward is the building or the place on the high school grounds is town land. And I don't know if it was an oversight by the select board or a conscious decision, but last night they went through CPC preliminary applications of projects that are on town-owned land that can only go forward with the approval of the select board. And they have the list of all the preliminary applications. And it is up to them whether they put it on their agenda and hear it and decide it. And they didn't. So the Hingham Sports Partnership is not allowed on its own to ask for something on town-owned land without the approval of the selectmen. Any comments from my committee? Okay, thanks. Hingham Affordable Housing Trust. I have no issue with that going forward. I'll be curious to hear. It sounds like they need money to do paper, legal work, and we'll find out more. But I don't see anything in the ask that disqualifies them. Does anybody, Kirsten?
Very quick question. In previous years, we have moved forward without people having approval from the select board, so long as it was gotten by the date of the final application, right?
Oh, thank you. I meant to say that and I forgot. I put somebody, so we are supposed to have somebody seated to replace Bill, but the person hasn't been seated yet, and I don't want to name them until it becomes official. But in my head, oh, no. Megan, I put you on that. I'm sorry. Megan, can you reach out to the applicant and say that if they can get on the select board's agenda before October 12th and get permission from the select board to move forward with this?
Sorry, are we talking about the high school or about Affordable Housing Trust?
The high school.
The high school, okay.
Yeah. So I'm naming you liaison. And
Okay.
Kirsten, that's a really good point. They have to, if they can get it by final application, then it would be allowed to move forward. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what a health and wellness.
What's the date, Larry?
October
Forget.
12th at 5 p.m. Okay. So Hingham Affordable Housing Trust, we're good, right? That's the, I would, if we get the person seated that I'm supposing will be seated, I'm going to put that person on it. Habitat for Humanity, building the 2 homes on Whiting Street. I checked with Community Preservation Coalition just to make sure that money voted for Habitat is allowed for CPC. It counts towards CPC funding, and the answer is yes. So there's no issue on that one going forward, unless somebody on my committee sees one. Okay. The Hingham Girl Scouts.
Larry, do you want to tell us who you're assigning to that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Humanity.
Bob, that's you. Bob, you there? I'm asking you to unmute. He's here. I can see him I can see his name on my screen, and I'm asking him to unmute, and I'm asking nicely. Anyway, Bob is the lead. You there? No, he's still muted. I don't know what's going on. But that's Bob, is the Habitat for Humanity. 100,000 for the 2 homes on Whiting Street. Okay, the Hingham Girl Scouts, and I wanted to make Kevin the liaison for this. They're looking to make it ADA accessible. The total.
Excuse me 1 second, Larry. I'm in New York and I'm having a communication
Well,
problem.
it's too late. We already made you the liaison.
That's all right. I'll do it. I'm going to try to switch to another computer.
Okay.
Stick with me.
Yeah, we'll stick with you. So Hingham Girl Scouts, I want to make, does anybody know where Kevin is by any chance? Okay, I'll find him. So they want to make the Girl Scout house ADA accessible. We gave them a good chunk of money a few years ago to fix up the place. And I think they're raising half, they're asking for half the total, which is sweet. They're trying to, unlike HHA, they have recourse to try to find funds elsewhere. So they're going to try to find funds elsewhere. And I don't see any reason why that one cannot proceed. Again, for anybody in the room, it doesn't mean that they're going to get voted a final recommendation. It means their application meets the CPC requirements. Is there any disagreement in the room? Great.
Larry, this is Vicky. I just want to say I was part of the committee that awarded the money, and I just want everyone to know it is a historic building. For those who don't know where it is on Burr Street, it's about 100 years old. So
I think
it qualifies for historic.
I think what they told us at the time is it's the 6th oldest Girl Scout house in the country. So
And they purchased it from the girls. The Girl Scouts no longer own it. The Hingham Girl Scouts own it. It's not
Interesting.
owned by the Girl
It was
Scouts.
actually the first Girl Scout house built in New England
Yes.
dedicated to Girl Scouts.
Right.
interesting. And you all, it's that one on Burr Road,
Yes.
like across from the side of Town Hall. So that can go forward. The pool at the country club. Okay, Charlie, I'm putting you
Who are you
on.
assigning to the Girl Scouts? Just want to.
Kevin, but he's not here, but
Oh,
I'll
thank
talk to him.
Thank you.
Again, it goes back to Judy's question. I was trying to give people things that weren't in their wheelhouse because it would make them more dispassionate. So Kevin's historical, and I know he's very sports-minded. So I thought ADA accessibility, he'd be able to be calm and reasoned and just walk them through what they need to know. So the pool. So I met. So the bottom line is, yes, the pool can go forward to the final application. But they don't have everything they need yet. They need, first of all, cost estimates, because the 7 million total and the 1 million that they're asking from CPC are just numbers. They don't know. So I met today with Kevin and Christine and Liz Klein, who's the select board liaison to the country club, to discuss CPC's needs to make this eligible. And I said, if by the time of the final application, we don't have cost estimates, we can't let you go forward with this. It's not fair to the other applications, because then you're just kind of spitting in the wind. We need some kind of real number. Somebody's texting me. No, it's just my brother. He's not on CPC, so he gets ignored. So anyway, they assured me that they will have cost estimates from the architect by October 12th at 5 p.m., which we need. What they won't have by October 12th is the actual design and construction documents. They have schematics, they're beautiful, it looks like HGTV, but we kind of need the design and construction documents to be able to vote on this one way or another come January, because it was we who told the town, it was we who advised the town, recommended to the town, vote them $500,000 for design and construction documents as their first step in building the pool. And when you get cost estimates, that takes you a lot of the way there to the cost, but design and construction documents tweak things, they change things. And what Kevin told me, and everything was nice and friendly, we'll have design and construction. We've been assured by the architect that we'll have design and construction documents by town meeting. And I said, that doesn't help us because we vote in the middle of January. The warrant comes out in March. So I assume he means by town meeting by the time it has to go into the warrant. And I said, we need to have the design and construction documents before you vote. And he said, okay, we will lean on him, the architect, as hard as we can. And when we come in with our final application in October, we'll let you know where we're at in terms of when the design and construction documents come in. And I don't want to say any more about this now. There are other considerations, but I think it's fair to let them go forward to the final. They promise us they're going to have cost estimates at the final, which is a big chunk of the information. And hopefully, fingers crossed, they can have design and construction documents by the time of our vote. So I'm in favor of that moving forward at this time. Does anybody want to say, I don't like that idea? Great.
Claire, you want me to
Yeah.
say anything? It's Christine.
Yeah,
So Christine Smith, I'm the chair of the Country Club Management Committee, and thanks for sitting with us, Larry, today. And just wanted to say, I know this is a big ask. We're excited to submit the $1 million application on behalf of the town of Hingham. As part of, it's going to be part of a financing package to construct the long-awaited town pool facility.
Christine, you're advocating. Just tell us what we need to know.
We're making our way through the 500,000. We've got schematic designs, cost estimates, and construction docs are on their way. So thank you. Look forward to talking about this more at town meeting.
Okay, all right. She took out her pom-poms. I couldn't stop her, but it's okay. We can live with it. Okay, so now the two applications from the Recreation. Oh, I missed, I skipped something. Excuse me. I skipped the two from the Historical Commission. One was to restore and paint, and then I'll get to the Rec Commission at the end. So the Hingham Historical Commission has put forward two applications. One was to restore and paint the tree and park barn. As those of you who were on CPC 2 years ago know that they came before us 2 years ago to paint the tree and park barn. They asked for $45,000. We said it was maintenance. They showed us a line from the CPA, from the Act, that says if you paint the entire building, it's the envelope and it's allowed. And I spoke to Stuart Saganor about this, and it is not allowed. And I have the painting letter from DOR, and if I haven't sent it to you guys, has anybody seen a painting letter from me yet today?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys have it. So these are the instances in which painting is not considered maintenance and is allowed as historic preservation. If you are really restoring major parts of the building, you can include painting in that, but painting can't be the main thing you're doing. Otherwise, it's maintenance. The other time is if the building is not the historic color, you can submit a preliminary application and then a final application to restore the building to its historic color, but that isn't what their preliminary application is about. So this is what I suggest for, this is my thinking, push back or tell me what you think. We know that the painting of the building is an estimated $45,000 because she just came to us with that 2 years ago. In fact, if anything, it's gone up because everything has gone up. But let's say it's 45. I would say to the Historical Commission, come back. So they can't change what they're asking. They can't go back and say, well, we want 65 for something else. But I would say, come back and ask for 20,000 for actual restoration work on the building, because you're saying there is something that needs to be restored, that needs to be fixed, preserved on the building. So I think that makes sense. We cannot pay, painting is maintenance unless it's part of a huge restoration project. We had this with the Ames Chapel. We were allowed to include painting because we fixed the building top to bottom. So anyway, I'm blabbing. I think come back for 20,000 for restoration. Does anybody want to speak to that on my committee?
Larry, this is Vicky. I hate to be the historic person here because this is making me sound very old. And it sounds like everything we did in this town happened in 2014, or maybe everybody comes back every 7 years. But anyway, I just want to report to everybody on CPC that the tree and park barn, I mean, it's definitely a historic building. It's definitely owned by the town, but the windows were done. CPC gave a portion of the money to the town for the windows. Dick Orr, who, and I was the liaison to this, so I know this project very well. Dick Orr, who many of you probably know is the tenant there, he participated with the town almost at an equal price with his labor, and doing the sash work was done by a historic person whose name I can't remember. It was Linda somebody, and Dick did the work of the windows. So I just want to be very clear because they're going to need to come back with something that's other than windows, unless these beautiful windows that were, you know, they were done historically, like preserved, like we all know has to be done, but they were done, and Dick Orr can certainly, and it took several years because it was a work in progress. Obviously he has a job, and it took a while, but anyway, we did give money to the tree and park barn for the preservation and restoration of historic windows. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows it's not like we don't like the tree and park barn.
There's nothing here that isn't worthy. It's all about what we can and should do. Judy?
I see a hard thing in the interpretation here, which is if you let the building decay, then you qualify for the painting. And if you keep up the maintenance, you have to pay for the painting yourself. And I'm just saying that's somewhat frustrating from a CPC standpoint. And I look forward to the discussions moving forward on all kinds of maintenance. Like I know everyone disagrees, but to me, the tennis courts, that's maintenance of the tennis courts, unless you let them fall apart. And so now we have 2 rec projects where we've let the facilities fall apart and they're eligible to be rebuilt. But had they been maintained, they wouldn't need to be rebuilt. So it's a hard conversation to have with the town about maintaining its facilities.
I agree with you. And I've thought a lot about this. Deferred maintenance becomes restoration after a while. But for our purposes, we don't have to be so philosophical. Painting is not allowed. It's just where it's at. So my question to you is, I am prepared to go to the Historical Commission represented by Andrea and say, we can't pay for painting, which was estimated 2 years ago at $45,000, but we can pay to do restoration work because that's part of preservation. Please come back with an ask for 20 detailing what would need to be done. So I just need to know, does anybody not want me to do that? Okay, great. The other Hingham Historical Commission application is for restoration and treatment of the military and historical monuments. And I didn't think anything about it. I asked Andrea and Keith for the stuff, and Keith sent the stuff, and you all saw that. And I thought, okay. But actually, they cannot go forward. And there's such an incredibly simple reason. And Vicki pointed it out to me. So Vicki, I ask you to explain.
Well, I know that we have a lot of historic monuments in this town, but clearly Chief Steve Olson's plaque at Bear Cove Park is not. I mean, I think everyone in this, well, for those of us who've lived here a lot, knew Chief Carlson, and a wonderful man, but this is not a historic monument. It clearly was damaged, and I feel terrible about that. And clearly it should be repaired, but this is not historic. I don't understand the historic nature of the monument at Town Hall. I mean, the Town Hall only became the Town Hall in the 80s. Again, with all the historic monuments, I just don't understand why these 3 were chosen, and the shipyard. Now, unless it's a plaque that's old, the shipyard is only, what, 20 years old? It's not even 15 years old. So I don't understand why these particular monuments, because they just don't fall, they're not historic. I don't understand. I mean, unless historic now is 10 to 15 years, I don't know how these qualify as historic. So it's not that I'm against any, damage, and this vandalism, which clearly is stated here, sickens me, but I don't see how they're CPC eligible. And that doesn't mean that we don't care about our monuments, but it seems to me we have a lot of historic ones that could have been on this list. So I just don't quite understand. So I'd certainly like to hear from other people how this fits historic present.
I mean,
Megan?
I did 1 year of law school, so I can totally do hypotheticals, but I would posit that sort of monuments are designed to be historical in a way that other things aren't necessarily. Houses can become historical over time, but the whole point of a monument is to be historical, to be always there, and to maintain it so that we don't have the situation like we were looking at the monuments last year, where, it was just, they were just completely overgrown.
But historical means historic, not that.
History is not historical. The difference is in the actual age of the item.
Yeah.
Well, then why do we build new buildings with historic preservation money?
When do we do that?
The museum?
That wasn't a new building. That was in Old Derby.
The addition in the back?
I don't know that. CPC gave about a third of the money for that. I'm sure CPC went to restoring Old Derby. What they add on to it from the other funds they raised is their business. We gave about $1 million. It was a $3 million project.
But it was only used on the restoration.
I wasn't on CPC at that time. In fact, I was
I just think
I
it's
was where
not as
Rick was
clear
at that
as
time. I was fighting
one or
with
the other.
CPC every day of my life.
I can speak, well, Larry, you can speak to that with the Ames Chapter. I mean, believe me, I was on the committee and every nickel that was spent on that museum came before CPC because we were very clear. Money could not be spent. It's the same with every kind of building in this town. The money can be spent in some of these projects on certain things and it can't be on other things. Certain things are allowed. I mean, even the, just to bring you up to go back to playgrounds that we've built in this town, the playgrounds that we've built, the parking lots are not CPC eligible. The rec department has to figure out in their own pocket how to pay for that. Those are not CPC eligible. So there are loads of other things. So just because a project is X, Y, Z, certain funds cannot go to certain pieces of the project. And that was very carefully, particularly with the Heritage, that was a multi-year project, just like your Ames Chapel was.
Well, I know when we restored the Ames, because I led that and I was the CPC applicant. That was a $1 million project and we got 310 from CPC. And I had to pick and choose what we were asking to get back from CPC. And Carol Costello would make me fill out these Excel sheets saying, you know, what categories it fits. So that's how that worked, Judy. Vicki, you are the liaison for the Hingham Historical Commission. So actually it's you who need to go to them about the 20K for restoring the tree and park barn. And as far as we understand, unless there's something in the statute that says what Megan is saying, that historical monument, that monuments to history are allowed, even if they are not historic. I don't, maybe there's something we both missed. I don't know. But anyway, so will you take that on?
Oh, thank you, Larry.
Oh, God love you. Okay. Okay, now to the Rec Commission, and I'm putting Kirsten on these two. So there's reconstruct. Yeah, Judy?
I have to jump off this call at 8:30. I'm sorry. So when I vanish, you know why.
Okay, we're gonna go. It's actually, I'm glad that you're here because this will go fast. So they put in applications for two different things. The reason for the range, as I understand it, is one is for a fix and one is for a replace. And I told them that we can't choose. They have to come to us and tell us which one they need us to do. And that was understood. So Kirsten, when you speak to Mark, he needs to say, we want to fix that one and redo that one, or we want to redo both, or we only want to fix, you know, it's not up to CPC to decide. They need to say, this is what we want to do, not we could do this or that, you decide. They need to cut their own baby in half. Okay, but they're eligible applications. Any questions or comments, or Larry, you didn't think this through, or? Okay, great. Okay, and I'll write this up and talk about which applications are going forward for our next meeting, which is October 20th. And then we have our site visits on Saturday, the 30th, and potentially Sunday, the 31st, depending on how many projects we're left with. But are there any questions or discussion on subjects not on the agenda, but need to be addressed? Nancy? Yeah, can't you?
I'm so sorry, Larry. I think I just missed it. Can you reiterate again who the liaison is? Are you the liaison for the Opportunity Fund?
No, the opportunity, you mean you're talking about HAHT?
Yeah.
That's the person who hasn't been seated yet. So
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's to be determined. And then the park barn, the tree and park barn?
The tree and park barn and the monuments are Vicki.
Both Vicki?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I apologize for.
No apologies necessary.
Larry,
Yeah.
can you repeat the dates of the site, the two dates that you said of the site visits?
Yes, October 30th and 31st. Usually they're a week earlier,
Okay.
but what I felt was the final applications are due on the 12th, which is a Tuesday. For us to meet on the Wednesday, the 13th is too soon. We're going to need to read through them and think. So we're going to have the meeting to discuss the final applications on the 20th. And then I was thinking, take a breather and do it on the 30th and 31st. But if the group as a whole would rather meet on the 23rd and 24th, if you all think that's better for site visits, I have no issue with that.
I
This is
actually
only-
can't do the
this is-
23rd, so
This is only for my committee. It's completely up to the committee. Charlie?
I'm not available on the 23rd weekend.
yeah, me neither. So
Okay. The other thing.
So tell me again when our next meeting is, Larry?
October 20th. Wednesday, October 20th. Okay, so anybody in this room should know, anybody is allowed to go on the site visits. The CPC, the community, it's a CPC meeting. But for my committee and for AdCom too, for the AdCom liaisons, if you're not able to attend any of the site visits, you can always make arrangements to visit the sites on your own. You don't have to do it as part of the meeting. So that's just important for you to know. Okay. Any other business?
Larry, it's Christine Smith. I'm just wondering, who's our liaison for the pool project?
It is Charlie, our vice chair.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
One last thing, Larry, can we get a copy of the transcript from the meeting?
You can't get a copy of the transcript, but it will be on the town cloud. In other words, you can,
Oh.
It's being recorded now, and you can reach it on from the town website. I
Okay,
don't know how soon. I don't know how many days it takes, but I think it goes pretty fast. Maybe a
Okay.
day or two.
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, now I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well, who first did it?
I'll
Somebody-
first it.
Okay, so Megan made the motion, Judy seconded. We need a voice count. Vicky,
Aye.
Larry, I, Kirsten,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Judy,
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye.
Bob.
I
Okay, we're good. Thank you all. Have a great night.